what holds you back is saying, I'm not worthy to charge this much, right? The shame that goes with it, and just looking at trauma and all of that. So having a safe space to talk about that and not be scared to talk about those things, and then to break those down inside our programs. Okay, I get to follow these ladies. So honored to be here. So thank you again for attending, and thank you for putting this together, UOG, GWCC. And when I was looking at this, what a leadership kind of moment, right? And for me, that was actually with some of these ladies at this table and in this room. And that was when I was the president of the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce. Oh, going back to 2020, right? Okay, so we all know what happened in 2020. And the governor here, she called together the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce along with the Guam Chamber of Commerce, and Christine was the president at that time, and a couple of other stakeholders together for the Business Recovery Task Force. And coming to that, it was like, what do I need to do as a leader in that moment? I'd only been president for a couple of months, and the whole world was changing. So one of the things that I said was, no ego, right? So what I did is I immediately called together a working group as well outside of our business task force, and that was our board, the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce, and previous board members like Kathy was on it, Dr. Adina was on it, right? We had other people, Mary, Jane was on it at the time, right? And we called these together to say, hey, we need to crowdsource information because things are changing so fast. I don't have all the information. I don't have all the knowledge. And the governor was saying, hey, come, we want you in this group so you guys can make recommendations, and so I can also disseminate information through you to the business community. So it was really to work inclusiveness, and I learned that from you, the governor, and I also learned it from working with people in this room to say, as women, we need to be inclusive. And I think that's how we're really different from men. Sorry, men. A lot of men in here, but we pull together inclusiveness, and we put our ego aside and we say, what do you know that's going on? How can I get information? How can I pull it together? And then how can we make decisions with different perspectives and different information? And then also align that with our gut, right? Align it with our instinct, with what feels good in our values, and move forward. So I really learned a lot in leadership just by the women in this room, and pulling information from you and being able to lean on you during those times. So thank you so much. For my industry, it's grant writers. Freelance grant writers primarily, and 82% are female. So we have a lot of females that I work with. We have a couple hundred people in my program, and it is absolutely amazing. So at a higher level, how I serve this community is that courage again, showing up and talking about things. And really what I like to lean into is saying, no shame. No shame, because 82% are females, there's a lot of shame we carry. So it's also just calling it out and saying, you don't need to feel shame, we need to be vulnerable and talk about these things. Because I can give you the best strategy there is, like here, this is how you go get clients, this is how you price your services, blah, 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 right? But what holds you back is saying, I'm not worthy to charge this much, right? The shame that goes with it, and just looking at trauma and all of that. So having a safe space to talk about that and not be scared to talk about those things, and then to break those down inside our programs. So at the general level, we have like our public level is podcast, YouTube, all that, where we talk about these things, we invite people on. But in our programs, we create a community through a daily Slack channel where people can communicate. Our weekly coaching, right? We do live feedback reviews on everything that they submit, their contracts, their proposals, all of the things. And we've even started a monthly co-working and coffee session on Zoom where they can just get together to chat, right? To talk about, it's hard right now being a business owner because I have kids at home. Or I'm gonna celebrate this grant that I won because I told my spouse and they said, oh yeah, nice, but you guys get it, right? You guys get it because you write grants too. So that's the way that I've really worked hard, is really starting with the emotion and the behavior, and then how you implement that in your strategy and in your businesses for women in our industries. One of the things that I've been doing as well is values and authenticity, right? So, and it does go back to your values. And one thing I do every year is I look at it and I say, okay, what are my values? And sometimes they don't change, right? But sometimes I do want to reevaluate them because sometimes they move up, they move down, right? I want to be able to lead forward to say, which one do I want to lean into this year? So I usually choose about 3 to 5, and we implement those into our business. But just like you were saying, a word is just a word. And you can be like, go to your values, you know what I mean? And it sounds so trendy and whatever, but how do you actually like get some meat into that? It's the same thing. It's how do we implement it? So even if you go to my website, you'll see our values, but then it says, this is how it shows up in the company. And then we have examples. So the number one value we're leaning into in 2025 is courage, right? And we say it's courage, but how does that show up in the business? Well, it shows up that we're going to pay attention to everything going on in federal grants. And believe you me, that has taken courage in 2025, right? And it's also saying we're going to call things out. We're also going to be coaching you, like we have entrepreneurs in our business, and we're saying we're going to be coaching you when you want to give a discount before the client even asks you for a discount. We're going to coach you and tell you not to do that. We're going to show up and we're going to be talking about the hard things, the elephants in the room, and all of the things, right? Because we have a lot of women in our programs and we want to lead from there. So how do I make those decisions? Going back to those values. And when you can look at and say, how are these values going to show up in my life? How am I going to be courageous in my life in 2025? How am I going to be courageous in my business? And how does that show up? Then when things get sticky, right? When things happen that are happening today, I can look back and I can say, well, what's my value? How is this going to show up? And it's easy for me to make a business decision and to lead in that way because I can lean back into those values and know how they're going to show up in my business. Thank you.